Good afternoon, New York, and the rest of our listeners around the globe. My name is June Stoyer, and I'm the host of the Organic View radio show. Our podcast is available on iTunes, Zune, and you can also visit our website at www.theorganicview.com. If you'd like to be on the show or would like to find out about sponsorship opportunities, please contact us at questions@theorganicview.com. Today's show is sponsored by ParkItUSA.com, America's #1 website for all of your international airport parking needs. Its free, easy-to-use service offers secure parking with discounted rates for long and short-term parking, on- and off-site parking, and free shuttle service. We offer guaranteed bookings, secure checkout, and hassle-free cancellations. Save time and money by reserving your parking space at ParkItUSA.com. Happy New Year! It's hard to believe that it is 2018. Tom and I have been doing this show together since 2011. For the most part, we've been producing weekly segments of the Neonicotinoid View and have focused on a number of startling topics, beginning with the infamous leaked memo, which actually began our friendship, and then went on to focus on massive honeybee deaths to the steady decline of the North American hummingbird. Last year, there were so many important issues that we talked about. On today's show, Tom and I are going to briefly talk about some of the highlights from last year. So I'd like to welcome to the show Colorado beekeeper, Mr. Tom Theobald. Hello, Tom.
Hello, June, from sunny Colorado. We're a little bit out on the edge of this cold weather that the east is suffering from. So the bees were actually flying today. It was warm enough for them to fly.
Well, unfortunately, nothing is flying on the East Coast as we're experiencing this tremendous blizzard and all sorts of winter elements. It'll be a very interesting start to the new year. But in any event, it's great to begin yet another year of the Neonicotinoid View, and I can't thank you enough for all of your help with all of the years. I can't believe we've been doing this since 2011. But
it is pretty amazing. You know, if you look back, we've covered a whole lot of subjects.
And one thing that I would like to address is the fact that the purpose of this show is for educational purposes. We really do try our hardest, folks, not to go against any particular group, but rather focus on what the facts are. And the one thing that we do try our hardest actually is to support both the farmers as well as the beekeepers, because the growers are extremely important. And we feel that the beekeepers and the growers need to really be working together. Don't you agree, Tom?
I do, June, and at their heart, beekeepers are farmers, and we've been set apart from the farm community, and an adversarial relationship has been created by the regulators primarily. But we're not opposed to the farmers. We are farmers, and we understand what they're up against because we face many of the same challenges.
The first topic that I'd like to talk about is in regards to honey production. Tom, could you share with our listeners some of the facts about honey production for last year?
The figures have just come out, and it looks like the honey production, the national honey production for 2017 is going to be about 98.5 million pounds. And I tried to think back. I was talking with Kim Flottam recently. Kim is the editor of Bee Culture magazine, and I asked Kim what our high point had been. As I recall, before these problems began, we had honey crops on the order of 240 to 260 million pounds. So this year, 98.5 million pounds will be the lowest national honey crop ever recorded. And it's a reflection of what's going on in the honey industry. There are two reasons for that. One is a significant loss of habitat, primarily because of the expansion of corn and soybean acreage, but in addition to that, herbicides such as glyphosate have eliminated much of the weedy forage that was an important element in honey production over the years. And beekeepers, in the face of that, in the face of declining habitat quality, and the importance of almond pollination, which really is their primary cash flow for many of them, have put their energies and their efforts into producing bees rather than producing honey. In other words, to replace their losses, to keep their numbers up, so that when almond pollination rolls around, they have sufficient numbers to take to California to keep their operations going.
Tom, I'm just curious, what's going to happen when the United States doesn't produce enough honey? Or is it much as it obviously isn't producing as much as it used to, but what's going to happen when the beekeepers primarily serve to just pollinate crops and not produce honey? Are we going to be importing? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, we've imported honey for many, many years. We exceeded our own production many years ago, so imported honey is a major part of the honey that you see on store shelves. The American public, at least the public that was aware, would seek out American honey, and in many cases, and in our area as an example, people would seek out local beekeepers because they felt the better they knew the source of their honey, the more assured they were of the quality of their product. But we outstripped American production long ago, so we're at the mercy of other countries for the honey that this country consumes.
Thanks, Tom. I think one of the things that I've observed just from shopping is the honey that's on the shelf isn't even from one country. It's a blend. And of course, you're always going to see honey products that are blended with high fructose corn syrup, which is a whole other story. But it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Well, if it's sold as honey and blended with high fructose corn syrup, that's a violation of the law. I don't think that's too significant, but like any other industry, you have a certain element that's unscrupulous. But I think that most of the honey that's on the store shelves is honey. As you say, it may be blended from any number of countries of origin, but it's still honey.
I've seen honey on the shelf, and we've talked about this. The honey, it had high fructose corn syrup, and most of this stuff was from China.
How do you know it has high fructose corn syrup?
It said it on the label.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Next time I go in, I'll take a picture of it. BJ's has the blends. A lot of the stores have the blends from the different countries, and
you've seen that on the label?
Yes, I've seen that.
Really? Okay.
The next topic I'd like to focus on is the genetic engineering of insects for the purpose of eliminating specific species. This is something that we knew was in the works, but when it actually happened, it just exploded, and it's almost surreal that something like this could even happen.
It is a little scary. You know, the fruit fly is an example of how we've tried to control the population by releasing sterile male fruit flies, and obviously they couldn't reproduce, and that limited the population. But this genetic modification of these insects is a whole new world, and I believe cause for great concern, because
it's a whole new business.
Well, what it is it's alteration of the genome, of the DNA of an insect, which, and the ones that I've read about, what it does is it interferes with the development of that insect at the pupal stage. Now, I joke somewhat facetiously that we never should have given these people a chemistry set for Christmas when they were 8 years old, because I have no confidence in them handling these things responsibly. If you genetically engineer a species, who chooses which species are going to be genetically engineered out of existence, and who really understands what importance they may or may not have for the total ecosystem? I think this is pretty scary business.
Once again, it's a whole new business for them. That's why they're doing it. They're not doing it because they want to save the planet. Give me a break.
Yeah. So it's something that bears watching, and we need to watch it closely to make sure that it doesn't get out of hand.
I know that several friends that are commercial beekeepers in Europe have talked about this and have also been keeping an eye on this. So, as you said, it will be interesting to see how this plays out. The last topic that we'd like to cover is in regards to Dicamba drift. This has been something that is actually also evolving as we speak. And many states have been working together to ban Dicamba, but it's not as easy as people would think. It's very difficult for these states to get the cooperation that they need in order to be able to protect not only the farmers, but also the beekeepers.
This is a very concerning issue, and Dicamba has been around for a long, long time. It's a broadleaf weed killer, and glyphosate was supposed to be the savior for agribusiness, and because of its molecular structure, we were told that the target species, the plants, would never develop resistance to glyphosate. Well, that didn't last for long, and we now have a whole host of monster weeds that respond to no controls, no chemical controls whatsoever. And the response on the part of the chemical industry was to genetically engineer crops to be resistant to Dicamba. Now, Dicamba has some special characteristics that are causing great problems. It's very volatile, and it can be applied to a field, and if the temperatures rise, that product can escape as a gas and can drift onto other crops that are not genetically engineered. So if you haven't paid a premium for genetically modified seed that would be resistant to Dicamba, Dicamba is going to wipe out your crop. And I think something like 3 million acres have been affected, and the farmers are up in arms. This is a very tense situation, and there are several states which are proposing not a ban, but a restriction on the application of Dicamba after spring. April, for example, cannot be used after April because of the danger of this volatilization. As far as the bees are concerned, like glyphosate, it eliminates much of the forage that they would have depended upon and reduces the quality of the forage. There's another interesting backstory to this, and that has to do with the concept of drift. The farmers are up in arms because they feel that they have been victimized by this drift that they have no control over. We've seen the same thing in beekeeping for decades, and the response in that case was not to protect the beekeepers against the drift, but to eliminate the beekeepers, to get them out of the way, to disenfranchise them and eliminate any protections that they would have under the law. And that's the state that we're at today. The regulators and the bureaucrats are pushing very hard to relieve the system of any responsibility to the bees and beekeepers. And it's a sad situation that's going on here.
Well, Tom, we'll see how it plays out, especially in the weeks to come. I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today, and once again, we'll continue with our shows each week throughout the year. And folks, I just want to say thank you so much for all of your support, for your emails, for your messages, and all the communication that we've received in regards to all of the work that we've done over the years. It's really appreciated. And if you have any questions for us, please contact us at questions@theorganicview.com.
Yes, I'd like to thank the listeners too. We really depend upon the listeners. That's the whole reason that we're doing this, to try to educate people to some of the concerns that not only we have as beekeepers, but that we share in general. And we have no lack of subjects. It seems like every week some new crisis is emerging to talk about.
Unfortunately, that is the case. Thanks for tuning in, folks. This has been June Stoyer with the Organic View Radio Show. Have a great afternoon.